Welcome to my monthly Buddhist podcast, What's Your Favourite Cake? A podcast about how I use the daily practice of Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism in my life. This is my journey and how I use my Buddhist practice to enhance my life, but with the hope that I can inspire you on your journey too. What's Your Favourite Cake is available on Spotify as well as my YouTube channel, which is also where you'll find videos with audio that we can all chant along to, as well as Buddhist study videos with my take on various Goshos, as well as basics of Buddhism topics too. Before we start, I'd like to say a big thank you to all the people supporting me through my Nigel the Buddha Patreon account, because none of my content would be possible without you. Episode 3. How to be or how not to be? That is the question. Hi folks. Hope you're well. Hope you're doing brilliantly, in fact, and I hope you've had a really fantastic start to 2022. Okay, so if you've listened to previous episodes of this podcast, What's Your Favourite Cake? You might well know why I chose such a random title. I mean, it's a Buddhist podcast, isn't it? So why is it called What's Your Favourite Cake? Well, the big reveal, the massive reveal, is in episode 1, which is called I Am a Diamond. And you'll also know that in each episode I talk about how I use the daily practice of Nichiren Buddhism in my life. So it's just me on the podcasts. However, this episode is different because, well, I have someone with me. My wife, yay! Hi Alice.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you.
Fantastic. So we thought we'd do a podcast together. We thought it would be a good idea to talk about our beliefs on certain subjects, what we agree on, and probably more importantly, what we don't agree on. But first things first, I have a very important question for you, Alice. It's just for fun. No prizes, you don't win a jackpot or anything. And I've written down the answer that I think you'll say. And the question is, Alice, what is your favourite cake?
Well, this is going to be controversial.
Okay.
Because I would say my favourite cake is, at the moment, is probably like a coffee and walnut cake.
Oh, that's wrong.
That's the only cake that you won't eat. So, yeah.
That's
although,
really
you know, all cake's good. Victoria sponge, Christmas cake, all cake's good.
What is another name for Christmas cake?
Fruit cake?
Another type of Christmassy cake. On a goji here.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
It begins with Dundee and it ends with cake.
Well, yes, I do like a Dundee cake.
Well, so you've said all of that, and I've put as my answer, you don't really eat cake, but if you had to choose, you'd pick Dundee cake. So, yes, you're right, I need to learn more about my wife, and I think maybe this podcast is probably then perfect. So we thought we'd do the podcast because actually, what do you think, Alice? I think we have the best conversations.
Yeah, I think so. We have some quite deep conversations. We don't do the small talk, do we? We do the big talk. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Especially when we disagree.
Yeah.
I think, for me, I never used to really disagree well. I don't know if it's an autistic thing, but I found it really hard to accept someone's viewpoint, anyone's viewpoint other than my own.
Yeah.
Is that my upbringing? Is that an autistic thing? Is it both, do you think?
I think it's an ADHD thing. There's a part of ADHD called rejection sensitive dysphoria. I think that's what it's called. Anyway, it's like rejection sensitivity. And if people think differently to us, we feel like it's a little bit of an attack on us. And I think you've got that.
Well, that's really interesting because, I mean, that's one thing we've spoken about before as well.
Yep.
It's definitely the case that through Buddhism, I've been able to, I'm better at it, but I'll come into that a little bit more later on. But interestingly, I thought it was because, well, you know, you said it's part of ADHD, and it's only 2 years, I think, since I've been diagnosed. 8 years since I've been diagnosed with ASD, autism. So I thought it was the way I was brought up.
Right.
My parents were quite controlling. We had to be seen and not heard. Wasn't allowed to get my point across. You know, parents were boss.
Yeah.
We had to do as they say, not as they do.
Yeah.
What they say goes. We couldn't argue back. And I think that's why I felt it was a controlling thing, because that still manifests itself in my adulthood.
Right, yeah.
Do you feel that at all? Is that part of your ADHD?
A little bit, I suppose. I think our upbringings definitely they definitely play a part in how we cope with our rejection sensitivity. Because of your upbringing, you're much more sensitive to it, whereas I was brought up to be free thinking and to have my own opinions and to think for myself and not just toe the line. So I think I cope better with other people's opinions than you do. That doesn't mean I like them. People believe that certain people don't have rights, or that's quite triggering to me as well. And so that's hard to deal with. But I am able to have a conversation with those people, a calm conversation, in a way that maybe you're not able to because of your upbringing.
Yeah, because I notice, for example, when you're dealing with, let's say, social media posts where you don't agree with something you think is very wrong, so you might respectfully comment, this is not correct, or you might put your point across. Now, if I did that, I would stress so much that person or someone else is going to come back with something I see as an attack.
Yeah.
You don't, do you?
No. I think my view on other people's opinions and other people's thoughts on my opinions is that I am unshakable in my beliefs and in what I believe is right and wrong, and in my morals and my ethics. So whatever somebody says back to me is kind of it's not relevant, really. I know that I'm always coming from a place of openness and love and caring, compassion. So if somebody comes and attacks me, then that's their business and not mine. And I don't feel personally about that. That's up to them. That's their causes, you Buddhists would say. So yeah, I don't think I stress about things like that. No.
Yeah, it's definitely the case. We can only change how we act and what we say.
Yeah.
So you talk about how when people respond, that's their business. I wonder how, because there might be people out there, well, I know there's people out there who listen and have ADHD. I can remember a few people who join me live. I do the chanting live on my YouTube channel that have ADHD. So I wonder if it'd be nice for them to comment and we can hear their experiences. So at least I don't feel alone.
Yeah.
I don't feel, because sometimes I think it's got to be just me and I'm completely bonkers. I'm mad. There's no hope for me.
Well,
Oh, folks. Yeah, so I mentioned about me being brought up in a controlling way, then that we had to be seen and not heard. Weren't allowed to get my point across, or if I did, it would be wrong. Parents were the boss, we couldn't argue back, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But it's not the way we do things in this family, is it?
No.
So let's discuss that more. First of all, I've realised that my cup is empty. and I need a cup of tea. Shall I put the kettle on?
Yes, please.
All disciples and lay supporters of Nichiren should chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo with the spirit of many in body but one in mind, transcending all differences among themselves to become as inseparable as fish and the water in which they swim. This spiritual bond is the basis for the universal transmission of the ultimate law of life and death. Herein lies the true goal of Nichiren's propagation. When you are so united, even the great desire for widespread propagation can be fulfilled. But if any of Nichiren's disciples disrupt the unity of many in body but one in mind, they would be like warriors who destroy their own castle from within. And that's one from Nichiren's Gosho entitled The Heritage of the Ultimate Law of Life. So, many in body, one in mind, or in Japanese it's Itai Doshin, which some people might recognize it more as. And I think we can relate that to our family as well, how we view things as a family. Because I think the most important thing that I've learned since we met is that normal doesn't exist.
Yeah, certainly not in this house anyway. Can't do normal. One of the great joys of having neurodivergent children and neurodivergent parents is that we have no expectations of them. There's no pressure to be a certain way, to act a certain way, to think a certain way. And I think they're growing up to think independently and to be independent and to not conform to arbitrary societal rules that don't make any sense, and that's wonderful. And that is our family, and that's something we've created, which I think we're both quite proud of.
Yeah, it's definitely something I'm proud of, but only because I've learnt from you. Gentle parenting, if you like, wasn't a thing. Well, it certainly wasn't a thing in my house.
No.
Growing up. So, I mentioned my parents were very strict, and I think it was because we had to conform to their view of normal.
Yeah.
It's like we were punished for anything that was outside what they considered normal.
Yeah.
But what is normal?
Yeah.
Is it the way society conditions us?
I think so. I remember having a conversation with your mum once, and we were at a birthday party, a family birthday party, and our son had dressed himself. He was 3 or 4, I think, and he dressed himself and his top was on back to front and inside out. And that's how he dressed himself, and that's how he went to the party. And I didn't care because it's not something that matters to me, but it was something that very much mattered to your mum. And she said, well, aren't you going to change his top? Put it the right way? And I said, no, he's dressed himself. And she said, but it's not on the right way. And I said, well, it's on the way he wanted to put it, and he's really proud that he dressed himself this morning. And she said, oh, I'd worry that people would think I was a bad mum, that I couldn't dress my child properly. And I said, well, I'm more worried about my son's thoughts on me as a mum and my thoughts on him and how proud I am of him for dressing himself. I'm not really worried about what other people think. And I think that's probably the crux of the difference between our parenting styles. And I never care what other people think of my parenting. I care what I think of my parenting. If I can look in the mirror at the end of the day and think, have I empowered my children to be proud of themselves, to do something that pushed them outside of their comfort zone, to be kind to others? Have they reached out to me when they needed help? If all those things are true, they're not all true every day, of course, but if all those things are true, then I'm doing a good job. I don't care whether his top's on back to front, inside out, whether he's got a toothpaste stain on it, whether his hair's a mess. Those things just are irrelevant to me, really. But, we all have different priorities, don't we? And I think your lovely mum was very much worried about that sort of thing. And I feel for her because it controlled her in a lot of ways that meant she wasn't free to just be happy. So she was constantly worrying about other people's opinions, and I think that can be quite sad, but you know.
I mean, I laughed at the end of that because, that's really interesting that you bring that particular incident up, because, you know, we're in conversation here. There's not a real script, but I've got pointers on my laptop screen.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'd forget everything. It would be, "Hi Alice, how you doing?" And then
Is that a squirrel?
it's a lovely butterfly, isn't it? I wouldn't remember, but I have that exact incident, not really an incident, but I have that exact story, if you like, written down.
Right, okay.
Because she also came to me and said that, that Alice doesn't really care. I went, okay. I think probably the only person that's caring is you. But if everyone is noticing and judging, that's up to them. I don't actually care either. And it jolted my mum.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Mum was the controlling person.
No.
In my
In your household.
yeah. But I certainly, you said something really interesting then, which was, I don't know exactly what you said, something like you felt for her because that's the way.
Yeah, it must be very limiting to live your life constantly worrying about other people's opinions, things like that.
It can't be down to, well, that was what we did back then.
No.
Because your parents weren't like that.
No.
Actually, I know your mum listens. She's commented a few times, so hi Mummy.
Hi Mummy.
She'll be straight on that phone. Oh dear. But you know, I don't blame my mum for that kind of thinking. So I think that's the way she was brought up, maybe.
Yeah. The cycle. We repeat the cycle.
Exactly. The way we bring our children up. You mentioned that there's something that we're quite proud of, and I don't know about you, but I've definitely got to the end of the day and the kids are in bed and we've had another, if you like, successful day. The kids are free from harm. They've had a happy day.
Especially at the end of a stressful day. Yeah. It can be like putting out fires when you've got young children. It's just, you've got to deal with what's in front of you, and yeah, you get to the end of it and it's like, you know, especially with schools and friends, and you know, both our children are neurodiverse and they don't find social things easy and they don't find education easy. So yeah, it can be a very stressful thing sometimes, and to get through the day and everyone's gone to sleep happy and feeling good about the next day is a minor miracle sometimes, and yeah, we definitely pat ourselves on the back, don't we?
Yeah, I learned something the other day when I take the kids to school. So we have a 9-year-old and a 17-year-old, and the 17-year-old is autistic, diagnosed autistic. Our son yet to be, but obviously is, definitely has ADHD. Yeah, so the other day I was taking them to school, and when there's silence, it's really awkward for me. And our daughter had her earphones in and our son was in the back being quiet. So the car was quiet and I felt awkward. So what do I do when I feel awkward?
You talk and you talk.
And
doesn't stop talking, which is one of the many things I love about him, because I'm quite a quiet person. And so are both the children. So when they're being quiet, it's hard for Nigel, because he's like, he has to fill the silence. He has this great need to fill the silence, and so he just chats, which is which is lovely.
Yeah. So what I learnt was, well, I came home and we had this discussion. I asked you, well, I was worried about whether I'd upset them, or or they were struggling with something.
Yeah, and I think I explained to you that they need time in the morning to just be quiet and to prepare their minds for school and psych themselves up. And then at the end of the day, they're often quiet when they come out because they need time to decompress after a day at school. And me and the children, we retreat into ourselves to be quiet and to have some time in our own brain. And I don't think Nigel is like this, so he struggles to recognise it. But now he has recognised it, and that's wonderful, and that's something he's learned about the children. I usually do school runs, so yeah, Nigel isn't a part of that usually, so he wouldn't have seen how quiet they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely the case that my Buddhist practice has helped me develop more respect for certainly people's differences. Because when we first met, I struggled with all the differences, didn't I?
Yeah, Nigel's a very sensitive person, and I think the rest of us are quite insensitive. We don't sugarcoat things. We're not delicate in the things we say and the things we do the way that Nigel is, and maybe Nigel is used to. You know, we want our children to be polite and kind, but if they don't say thank you, it's not the end of the world. If they go and, you know, if they walk mud into the house, it's not the end of the world. If they come across as a bit snappy, it's not the end of the world. Whereas in Nigel's upbringing, those all would have been huge deals. And so for Nigel to come into this house where we're all just pretty chilled about everything was difficult. It's an adjustment, wasn't it? Sometimes that adjustment is still there, and it's still a thing that catches him off guard at times, I think.
Yeah, you're so right. But thank you so much for being there and guiding me. You know, I have so much gratitude to you, because over the years I've really needed guidance on how to conduct myself and even how to behave sometimes. I'm a fully grown adult. I'm also autistic, so I think a lot of that gets cancelled out, and I feel like I'm a child sometimes inside, you know. So I think we have covered certainly the title of this podcast, which is How to Be or How Not to Be. It's not to tell other people how to be, how to behave. Absolutely not. But I certainly chose that title because, like I said, often I need help with how to be, how to live my life, how to behave, how to conduct myself, or how not to conduct myself, as the case often is. So yeah, I think we've covered that. What we haven't covered though is, we haven't done much Buddhisting, have we? And I don't think we've even mentioned you being atheist, let alone the things that it has in common with Buddhism, or as the case may be, the things that it doesn't have in common with Buddhism. So I think we should make this a two-parter. Who thinks that's a good idea? It's gone on long enough, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's probably best that we leave it there. And next month we'll talk about your atheism, what it means to you, how you came to believe in that philosophy, and also the fact that we have different beliefs in what happens after we die. That joyful subject, but it's an important one, isn't it? So folks, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas of the earth, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to check out the second part of this next month, where probably we'll have a full-blown argument.
Okay, excellent.
You're up for that? You have been listening to What's Your Favourite Cake, a monthly podcast about how I use Buddhism in my life. Come chant with me on my YouTube channel when I go live, and check out my Inspirational Quote video shorts too. Thank you so much for your support.